Hey guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Warrior Dads podcast. Today, I am really, really honored to bring Anthony Johnson on to the Warrior Dads podcast. He has a lot to share. He has an amazing story, and he is doing some amazing things for guys out there. So, a couple of the other guests that I've had, know Anthony, highly recommended him. So as soon as I started hearing more about him, I knew that he needed to share what he is about to share with you guys today. So do a quick intro, bring him on, and be prepared to be blown away. CEO, founder, and architect of the 21 Convention and 21 Studios, as well as the co-founder of the Red Man Group, Anthony Dream Johnson is the leading force behind the world's first and only panorama event for life on Earth as a man. He has been featured on WGN Chicago and in the New York Times #1 bestseller, The 4-Hour Workweek. His stated purpose for the work he does is the actualization of the ideal man, a purpose that has led him to found and host the 21 Convention across 4 countries over a 12-year time period. The mission of the 21 Studios is to create positive media for men and destroy the feminist establishment. Please welcome Anthony Johnson. Anthony, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me on. I've heard a lot of very good things about you from Hunter Drew and a couple of friends of mine.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. I'll have to thank them as well.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right in. I want to know, well, give everybody a little bit about your backstory, but then the first question I want to ask you is just, how did you come up with the idea for the 21 Convention? Because I know you were going to college for a little bit. It sounds like that didn't work out too well for you. How did you come up with this at such a young age? But then just, again, briefly go through your background.
Yeah. I think that's a really good way to put it too. The college bit is a good way to start. So I graduated high school in I think May 5th or something, 2006. And then a few weeks later, I went to college in Orlando, a couple hours from my hometown. I went to UCF, the college there, the big one. And within a few weeks of being there, I was taking summer classes. I was in the pickup community at the time, the seduction community, the pickup artists and stuff. And I was posting, I was going out, I was meeting girls, getting phone numbers, stuff like that, trying to get better with the girls. That was a problem for me at that age. And I didn't like that. I was like, I like girls. I want to get better with them. So the community I was involved with at that point, that was the manosphere, essentially, that component of it. I was posting a lot. And one day I had this wild idea
what's the
to do
manosphere?
meetup.
You just mentioned that. What is that?
Sure. Well, the manosphere is, I think, what your podcast would be considered a part of, whether or not you're, explicitly aware of it. So the manosphere is kind of a very loose network and organization of men on the internet and in real life too, with events. And that's basically podcasts, YouTube channels, websites, blogs, books, organizations like my company that create media for men, that create education for men, that create all kinds of podcasts and shows and content to help men be better men, very loosely speaking. And that can be, and there's a couple of different tribes within the manosphere. The pickup artist community, for example, is one of the oldest. That's been around since the 1990s. That was made famous in the 2000s by the book The Game, the New York Times bestseller, as well as a TV show on VH1 in 2008, 2009. So that's one of the well-known tribes. Another one that's gotten a lot of press over the years is the men's rights activists. That's another distinct group in the manosphere. They focus on men's issues and fathers' rights and men's rights. They're criticized for not being very successful at that, but they have been around for a long time. And each one of these tribes in the manosphere, the Red Pill is the one that I'm most involved with now, for example. That's another community in the manosphere, another tribe. Each one is, involves a couple 100,000 men. The Red Pill, for example, probably has about 400,000. The men's rights is 400,000 or 500,000 as well. The pickup arts community is kind of falling apart at this point, but it definitely was the largest. You could say it's probably over 1 million. Guys who are actively engaged in that community, in that sphere, posting content, reading content, talking about it, or they're fans of it, stuff like that. And the fourth one that's pretty big is the MGTOWs, who are very loosely organized. They're all over YouTube. They're really dominant on there and different websites and stuff. That's Men Going Their Own Way, if you guys have heard of that, or maybe you're fans. Anyway, that's the manosphere. But my foundation in the manosphere was the pickup artist community. I found that in late 2005. I was on the internet. I was going to a school dance my first time. I was nervous as shit. The girl I was going with was really hot. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. So I went to Google and I was like, how to dance at a club or something. And through that, I found Fast Seduction, one of the main websites for the pickup community back in the day. And then I found the Manosphere essentially because of that. Anyway, fast forward to summer 2006, and I'm at college. I've been there for a few weeks at this point, and I'm, going out meeting girls, going to a few classes I had in the summer. And I had this idea to do a meetup group for young men because I was meeting older guys in the pickup community at that time in Orlando. There was like a group of them called Top Layer. And that was very useful, but they were a lot older than me. I was 17 at the time. I was about to be 18 in August of that summer. But these guys had the same problems as me, but they were like 30, 35, 40 years old. Friends of mine to this day in some cases. But they were from such a different generation, it was hard to relate in a way that was like useful and like learnable from them. So I was like, damn, what if I did a meetup group of some sort with guys who were like, maybe not 17, but were like 19, 20, 21, who were a little bit ahead of me, a little bit better with girls. And specifically, they understood why they were better. They weren't like the natural Chad Thundercock, like my local college, for like a fraternity or something. They just kind of like picked up girls and was good at it and couldn't tell you why. Someone who maybe had been in the pickup community for a couple of years and had learned the ropes, had learned the hard way, had done the hard work, had done the approaches, had done all the work for it. So those are the kind of guys I wanted to find. And I was getting better too. I wasn't good at that point, but I was able to get phone numbers and dates and stuff like that, which is a lot better than most guys who can't get any of that stuff. So I was like, if I can meet guys who are a little bit better than me, I'll learn from them. And then I can teach guys who are at my level or worse. And it's a really, positive thing. So I put that idea out there in a specific form on the mystery method, mystery of the pickup artists, like this famous guy. And young guys went apeshit. Young guys were really excited for it. They were very ignored at the time in the pickup community. So it was like a niche because at 17 years old and 18 years old, you don't have any money. So these pickup companies wanted, to sell ebooks and DVD courses back then. 18-year-olds weren't buying them because these DVD courses were priced at like $500. And what 18-year-old kid has $500 to drop on a DVD set? Right. Not that many. So yeah, I put this idea out there and it took off like wildfire. It caused like a whole uproar of very positive energy. It almost got shut down by the moderators in the forum because it was obviously a commercial thing in a sense if we charged tickets for it. So they weren't I didn't work for them. So they were like, what the hell is this? How much were the tickets? The tickets to the first event ended up being $40. So it was pretty cheap. And then if you were a Florida resident, it was half that. It was 20. So it was like really inexpensive. And so check it out. So I spent the whole year. I put that idea out there, and some people suggested having a conference room, hotel, have some speakers, stuff like that, rather than just a meetup like we were going to do anyway, and we did. And that is actually how the formation of the convention really started, because my original idea was just a meetup group. It was called the Under 21 Meetup. Then someone suggested turning into some sort of convention with speakers, and I was like, oh fuck yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So it took a whole year of planning. We did it almost exactly 1 year later in July of 2007. It was the first event. And for a whole year's worth of work, I made about $100 in profit. So I averaged like a little bit less than $10 a month. But the fact that we pulled it off, I had no money at the time as a kid, to kind of back that up. And we collected cash at the door. So there wasn't even tickets online you could buy. We just had to take RSVPs over email. And then when people showed up, they bought a ticket, and that was it. And we had just enough to cover the expenses, the hotel room, the audio, guys, stuff like that. And then, made like $100. So that was kind of a little sweet story. But, razor thin. It was like, holy shit.
Right.
three less guys would have been short money to pull off the event. And
what year was that? The first event?
The first event took place in 2007, July 19th to the 21st, 2007.
And then what happened from there? You had the first event, and then did you have a good turnout? Great feedback? I mean, what happened?
Yeah, we had excellent turnout. We had about 81, 82 guys or something like that show up, including the speakers. We had like 10 speakers. So it was good. And it was interesting because most of the guys who attended were not from Florida. Like maybe 30 of them were from Florida. The other like 50 had flown in from around the world, from Canada, Sweden, Australia, all over America.
Just to attend the event, not the speakers you're talking about. You're talking about the people attending, right?
Yeah, just attend. Yeah, exactly. We had some speakers fly in too, from around like California and stuff, but attendees had flown in, from Australia. No one from New Zealand that year, but Australia, Sweden, Europe.
How Canada. Did you reach those people?
Just the internet, man. It wasn't even, there was no marketing campaign or anything like that. It wasn't even designed as a business, to be honest. Like now I'm this entrepreneur that I'm known as with 3 companies and stuff. But it was really like a hobby project. Like I'm going to build this conference. There's no tickets you can buy online. I put together a website that I was paying for at the time personally, under21convention.com. We had like a forum, people could discuss the event coming up and stuff like that. And it wasn't designed as a business though. So actually it's interesting you mentioned what happened. Well, the event took place. We had it filmed for free. There was a volunteer kind of film crew that put it together. Very basic stuff, but they filmed it. And then the attendees were asking me on the way out, like on the last day, they're like, hey, when's the next one? And it was actually, that was the first time, by hearing that out loud from somebody asking me that, that was the first time I'd even considered doing another one. I was 18 years old at the time. And I just kind of bullshitted them. I was like, oh, it's going to be next summer, same time. And then I was like, oh, fuck, I just committed to doing another event.
Right. But you got a whole year to do
and
it,
so,
right? So
yeah, exactly. And I knew I could at that point because I just done it. So it slowly started turning into a business at that point. But it wasn't really until 2009 that I officially started taking it more seriously after the second event in 2008, same time of the year, Orlando, July. But every year that went by, we kept, even in 2008, we expanded it. It went from being a 2-day conference to a 3-day conference. And then in 2009, it went from being a 3-day conference to a 4-day conference. In 2010, we held it twice in 2010, and I brought it to Europe for the first time. And it was also 2010 that I dropped out of college. So I was in college from 2006 to 2010. And then in the early 2010, like January, February, I had failed How to Start a Business for the second time in a row. And that was the only class I'd ever failed.
that was the name of a class.
Or college. That was the name of the class, I swear to God. I failed it twice in a row. How to Start a Business. I was the only student both semesters to actually have a business or ever own one in the first place. I was in the school paper repeatedly for this kind of stuff in Orlando because it was pretty big, all that stuff. And yet I failed that class. And that was kind of a calling card that, I don't belong here. Like there's something really wrong with this. Is like out of a movie or some shit.
You mean you don't
like
belong
I have
in
a successful
college.
Business.
Yeah,
in college. Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm not learning anything. Like it's a waste of time. Obviously I don't need it to run a business. And I wasn't studying anything other than entrepreneurship that even interested me. Entrepreneurship was a minor in the kind of course track I had. And obviously that was of huge interest to me, but the class was really frustrating because it was all like bureaucratic bullshit. And it was distracting because even to the extent it was bureaucratic bullshit, like, managing, just navigating government stuff, I was like, it would always make me think about my own business. So I couldn't stay focused on the actual course content. So I kept failing it. But I actually went to every single class too. Like you didn't even have to go. I still went to them.
Wow. So it wasn't like,
but anyway, I dropped out.
Awesome.
No, I went to all my classes. Yeah. It was really rare I'd miss a class for any class in college. I'm really, like you mentioned, we were talking about before we went live here, dedication. Like when I make a choice on something, I commit to it. I go all in, balls deep, no condom. Like I commit to it. And unless and until I need to pull out, kind of pun intended, right. I guess. But in this case, I've been in college for 4 years and I was committed to being in it. I was just starting to realize, I'm like, this is not, I have to make a different choice. I have to get out of this. Like I have to go focus on what's important to me. And what was important was the convention, was the company that was being built and expanding it. And so in 2010, people had been encouraging me to bring it to California, to New York, outside of Florida. And I was like, that sounds boring. Like that's still in America. Like I love America. I love this country, but you can get on a domestic flight and fly to Orlando. Like it's like one of the top convention cities in the world. So what's the point of doing it in New York? Like the same people are going to go to it that they go to Florida pretty much. So I decided to bring it to Europe. So in 2010, I dropped out of college, and within 3 months, we built a convention in Sweden, Stockholm, Sweden, for the first time. First time doing it outside of Florida, and never mind I never even been to Europe at that point. As a kid, I went briefly to Paris, but other than that, I'd never traveled like seriously abroad like that. Never mind bringing my business to another country like that.
How did you facilitate that?
So that was
what connections did you have over there, or what made you pick Stockholm?
I knew one guy in Europe, and he lived in Stockholm. He was a speaker in 2008. So he had attended in 2007 from Sweden, and he was one of those guys. And then he had spoken in 2008. And then I realized when I wanted to bring it to Europe, I was like, well, there's only one human being I know in Europe, and that is this guy, Deon. So I'm going to go to Sweden. Looked fine too. It didn't look like it was a problem. People had suggested London, of course, which we did later. We did 2 events in London in 2011 and 2012. But off the bat, I was like, I don't want to go to this continent where I don't know anybody. But this guy I know. This guy I've known for a couple of years now. He's very supportive of the convention. Obviously, he had spoken at it and stuff. I was like, yeah, we're going to go there. They speak English. It'll be fun. And the women are really hot, I hear. And sure as hell they were. Like Stockholm is amazing women.
Wow.
So, and yeah, I pulled it off. Dedication, man. It was really hard. A lot of night sweats, a lot of tears, man, a lot of crazy ass shit.
And are you doing all this by
But it was hard.
yourself, or you had some other friends or partners that you kind of picked up along the way, or this is just all you, lone wolf, all that?
Complete solo,
Wow.
lone wolf, dude.
Do you like working like that?
Yeah. Yeah, but the company now is becoming so big that it's no longer really an option to do it. I mean, I still like, that's my preferred way to work, is like this lone wolf, like go to war, one-man army. But the company has gotten so big that it's no longer like possible. I think over the past probably 18 months, it's just grown like big time. I have about 10 guys that work for me now at any given time. We're doing 3 events again this year. And the company last year did like 10 million views across YouTube and other platforms and stuff. More actually, if you count Twitter and stuff. So yeah, it's getting pretty wild. It's pretty awesome.
That is, man. Congratulations. So you mentioned 2010 in Stockholm, right?
Yeah.
But you also have kind of another interesting story around 2010. So I mean, it sounds awesome at this point, right? I mean, you've done a couple conventions now in the United States, and now you're like thinking bigger, and you're saying, hey, I know someone in Stockholm. I want to bring it to Europe. But tell people about the other interesting thing that started happening in 2010, where you had 23 cents in your account, and
so that was
where was I guess in your mind, looking back and reflecting, where was the disconnect, or why did all that need to happen in your life at that particular moment? Sure.
So I think that was part of me just growing up and becoming a man. I mean, I was 21 years old at that point, I think, right? Yeah, I turned 21 that year. Or the year before? Yeah, I was 21 at that point. So going to Europe, I mean, I dropped out of college, went to Europe pretty fast. Like I'd already been thinking about going to Europe anyway and doing the convention there. We've been talking about it, me and some of the speakers and stuff. But dropping out of college and failing that course, which led me to me dropping out, I was like, yeah, this needs to happen. So I guess there was some emotional trauma with that. I'd been in college for 4 years, and leaving college was like a big deal. It wasn't like a huge deal, like someone who had been really taking it super seriously, like in a medical or like law degree track or something. But leaving it was a big deal. I got a lot of heat from my parents for it, and friends were really concerned and stuff like that. So I had to go against the grain. Like a few people were supportive, the speakers obviously, and like a few friends, but mostly people were very skeptical. Obviously this is risky. I had been doing the convention for a couple of years at that point, but it was a local thing. It was Orlando, and the people would fly into it. But yeah, doing 2 events in 1 year. So we didn't just do 1, we did 2 that year. And then bringing it to Europe was like, holy shit, people were skeptical that I'd pull it off. But sure shit, I did. So later that year, though, so we did 2 events. We did Sweden in June, and then we did Orlando again in July. So it was pretty fast. It was July, right? Yeah, it was July.
That's quick.
Yeah. So what we were seeing, though, is kind of what you're getting at, I think, is that the company was never designed as a business. There was never a business plan. It was literally not intended to be a business. It was a hobby project, the first one, and the first year of kind of setting it up, and all that. And I was very young too. Of course, I had very little education and stuff. I failed how to start a business literally twice. I had no other real, entrepreneurial experience. I had a small company when I was a kid, like detailing cars, but it was just like a side thing I did. So yeah, it was all run and gun, learning it on my own, and I had no one working with me. So I think what you saw in 2010 is I was beginning to understand the fact that it was a business. I'd actually incorporated it that year in January, an LLC in Florida. And I guess I was coming to the reality of the fact that there was never a business plan for how to monetize it properly. Like we had the tickets to fund the events, but the company was becoming bigger than the events. I think that's the root answer of what you're asking, is that the event, the company started as the event. Those were the one and the same. And as time went on, you saw kind of the beginning of 21 Studios at this point, conceptually. So now it was a company that was putting on multiple events per year. And I wanted to do 2 again in 2011, which we ended up doing. So it was the accumulation of content, the accumulation of these videos, the web properties, the websites, learning how to monetize the videos, make money off them, to support the company and turn a profit and keep it healthy. 2010 was the turning point, I'd say, between the event and the media organization that you see now at 21 Studios. I do consider the founding of 21 Studios to be July 2006, when I started organizing the first event. But 2010 is where it started kind of forming in my mind that I was running a media company and an events company, not just a singular event that kept repeating itself over time. And that had consequences and that had costs. And that's why later that year I was broke as shit. And I think it was October. I had like 23 cents in my bank account. I had pretty much nowhere to sleep, almost, and nothing to eat, and I had no money. And the business account too, like negative $200 in it. So really, I had less than 23 cents. I had like negative money at that point.
You said nowhere to sleep. Where were you sleeping?
I ended up renting a space at a friend's house temporarily, like on his couch, basically, for like 2 months.
Okay.
In Orlando. Yeah. So, and my parents were still a couple hours away, but that house, they were getting foreclosed on as well due to the housing bust and all that shit. So it was pretty intense stuff. Yeah, being that I was 22 at that point, 21. Yeah, I was 22
and
at that point.
How about the money that you had previously made on the events in the U.S. and then Stockholm?
Oh man, events are a tough business, man. I mean, we make profit on events now typically, but dude, like most people drop. I've seen so many Manosphere events rise and fall because they are incredibly, any industry is hard to do events, conferences like this, unless you add on endless amount of bullshit upsells. So if you go to like some real estate conference, for example, they're going to have like unlimited workshops, like money making magic secret bullshit for $15,000 for 3 hours in this little room with some dude who's going to slide the secrets of the world. We don't do that. 21 Convention is a really premium, core, badass, truthful experience. Like, I'm dedicated as fuck. Exactly like probably I think Hunter told you. And that's one of the reasons me and him get along so well. He's very similar. So, no, events, dude, they often lose money. Like, they lose money or break even if you're lucky. Yeah, dude, events are tough.
I think people probably look at them in a different way. They're probably thinking to themselves like, well, I paid X amount of dollars to be here, and they're looking around the room. It's like what people do at a wedding. You know what I mean? It's like, how much do you think this dish costs? Like, how much do you think this whole wedding costs? Like, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? But people do that, and it's like, they think, all right, well, I paid like $300 to be here, or $1,000 to be here, and like, how many seats are here roughly? There got to be like 400 people here. They're like, man, they must be cleaning up.
Yeah, sometimes it's like that. Rarely is it like that. And the only time it's usually like that is when you start an event for the first time. Sometimes you have like an initial, like we had that in the beginning, like initial like high turnout. And that was why the event was able to pull off with a small profit. Even though the pricing was like way too low, for example. We should have charged a lot more even the first year, but we didn't. I didn't know any better at the time. But yeah, events have an incredible amount of costs, from insurance to security to filming to photography to audio to staff. I don't even pay myself, honestly. I still don't pay myself. I've never paid myself to do a conference in 12 years. I just do them for free. I'll work 20 plus hours a day at the conference, before the event, leading up to it, during the event, and then after the event. We're talking like a couple days here at a time. I'll work 20 plus hours a day. But yeah, I'll get 1 hour of sleep a night. That's one of the reasons the speakers respect me so much, like Hunter, for example, and George Bruno. They see what I go through to pull this off at times. And I don't have to work that hard at this point, but I do, because I'm dedicated as fuck to the bone for it. And I'm dedicated to making it the best event and the best experience and the best product possible. And that's everything. So I will go, even if I don't need to, I will go above and beyond. I will work 20, 21, 22 hours a day, repeatedly, days in a row, with no sleep, and just suck down coffee and suck it up and go. Because to me, it's a war. I'm fighting like a culture war and a gender war. So it's really important to me. Hang on, I gotta move into another room here. My sister's getting back. She still lives with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You guys are so close.
Yeah, I have 2 sisters. The other one's pregnant, so I'm going to be an uncle soon.
Nice. Congratulations. Apparently.
First time. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you're having a hard time trying to find a place to sleep, and you got a little bit of money in the bank account, and you just finished. Oh, you said this was in October, so you just finished. Another event. So you just got finished doing 2 events, one in Stockholm, one in Florida, like back-to-back months.
Yep.
So where do you go from there? I mean, what was the turning point for you? Or, I mean, obviously you have this amazing dedication and drive, but what was it, the thing that turned it around, or how did you pull off the next event? Or maybe it wasn't even the event that propelled you into, the next thing.
Yeah. So a couple things. I was so broke I couldn't eat, so I had to call my mom up and ask her for $20 just to, like, send me in my bank account. And thankfully she did. And I was able to buy eggs and cheese that week and then drink like
And
tap
you said
water.
she was going
So I was
through a
able to like
foreclosure, right?
survive. And
That $20 was
yeah,
probably a lot to
yep,
her.
yep. And I could have, she wasn't the only person in the world I could ask for $20 from. I had other friends, of course, I could ask, but I was trying to keep it, private. I don't like dumping that kind of stuff off of my friends unless I'm actually going to like
Sure.
starve. In this case, I called her up and it worked out pretty quick. It wasn't
Yeah.
a huge deal. But I mean, it wasn't a huge deal looking back on it, but at the time it was a big deal for me. Like, holy fuck, I can't even feed myself. I'm 20, 21 years old or 22 at that
Absolutely.
point. So I did that. And then I got a temporary job working part-time at H Gregg selling
Mm.
TVs. I worked there for like 6 weeks in the winter. They're out of business now, ironically, and I'm still in business. Along with, yeah. I actually I worked for Circuit City when I was a teenager, and then Sears, and then Gregg. All three of them now, which are
Yeah, I used to
bankrupt.
work at Circuit City in college,
So
and then
there you go. Fuck
a
yeah,
little
man.
out of college too.
Yeah.
What
Anyway,
department?
so
What
I worked
department?
there. Well, in Circuit City, I started off in merch, and then I moved to TVs and laptops and
Okay,
stuff.
I did TVs,
Yeah. Yeah.
computers, and then I was
Yep.
the POG for a little while, the merchandising manager. So it sounds like almost like the
Okay.
exact same
Yeah.
thing. That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck yeah. I had a good
Yeah.
time. So I did that though. And so I'd worked there for 6 weeks and I told them I was going to leave like January 2nd or 3rd or something like that. And they didn't really believe me. And then sure as shit, I was like, all right, I'm going to leave now. And like, wait, what? You're serious? I'm like, yeah, like I don't have time to work here. Like I just need some amount of money. Like I
Yeah.
told you. So they're actually very surprised. They thought I made up like running a business and stuff. And I was like, no, like, and at night I was still working on the business. I'd work during the day there. And then in the evenings or whatever I had my free time, I'd still work 5, 6, 7 hours a day in the business constantly. I'm just like a machine, man. Like I
Yeah.
just keep going. I'm really, really driven for, what I love and what I care about. So I worked there for a few weeks. That got me a couple $1,000s in cash I was able to save up. And through that, I was able to put together the footage from the events in 2010 onto DVDs and put them into DVD packs and then sell them out of Orlando, like drop shipping. And we sold a lot of, I know this is going to sound ridiculous in 2019, but we sold a lot of DVDs in early 2011. Particularly, I put like together a health and fitness pack for some of our health and fitness speakers that were huge at the
Hmm.
time. And that sold like dozens and dozens and dozens of copies, the pack. And these packs were like $100 a pop. So for the first time in the history of the company, we're starting to make actual legitimate money off the videos. Whereas before they'd just been free. They'd been free to the world, which attracted attendees, kind of like a TED
Hmm.
conference. We put the videos out for free and it would bring in attendees, but that wasn't really enough. That was barely enough to fund the events. Never mind, then how do you run the company the rest of the year? How do you run the websites? How do I feed myself working 10 hours a day in this company,
Sure.
12 hours a day? And how do I do the video editing? Who am I going to pay to do that? I can't do all that with that much footage. It's crazy. So the DVD set, yeah, that was our first real successful crack at monetizing the videos, and it went pretty well. That's obviously long gone now. I still live in my garage, some of the old
Yeah.
ones, but just the memorabilia. But yeah, that was 2011 was a good time for DVDs. Probably the last hurrah. You could probably sell DVDs on the internet, and went great. And that was able to then pay off all the little debts we had for video and stuff. That was able to get me back on my feet. And I moved back down to my hometown temporarily for a few months there, and I started putting together the next events. We had 2 more events then. We had in 2011. We had the first one in London. That was in June 2011, kind of repeating the previous year of Sweden, Orlando. And then we had another event in Orlando, and I think that was in July or
Hmm.
August. It's kind of similar timelines to
Yeah.
2010.
Now, is it a lot more? Is it a lot
And it
more
was
expensive to do the convention over in London? I mean, obviously you gotta, you're living in Florida, right? So you're doing the
Yeah,
Orlando one.
yep,
There's less cost even just for you to get to and from the event itself, But going to London and
that's
then
right.
having everybody else go there, or any of your
Yep.
support group or anything, is it a lot less money than just doing the Orlando one? Or
Yeah, I'll put it this way. It's not necessarily more expensive to do the events internationally, but the potential is there massively if you don't cover your ass with it.
okay,
So back then, for example, we weren't paying speakers yet in terms of paying their travel expenses. Sometimes you would,
hmm,
sometimes you wouldn't. And for the international events, I'd just have to be like, hey, like I'm not going to cover it. So if you want to speak, you're welcome to speak, but you get all the benefits out of doing that. But for this event, I'm not going to cover your flight and hotel, or I'll cover up to $300 of it or something
So you
like that.
typically pay for the speakers
So
to come to your events?
at this point, yeah, I don't pay them. They're not paid a fee. Kind of like Ted. Ted doesn't pay any other speakers ever.
Yeah.
So we don't pay the speakers, but we do cover their expenses completely at this point.
Oh, wow.
Typically, it's really rare that we don't. So we pay their flight, and then we pay for their hotel, and then we pay like Uber and taxi and like parking or baggage fees and shit like that.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's what we do at this point.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So 2011, that's what happened. And then after the 2011 convention, I met this sweet little redhead off Plenty of Fish, the first woman I met off the internet.
Yeah.
And that ended up being a prostitute that I married. Sort of.
I've heard about this interesting marriage story. You have to tell me this. This is and everybody listening.
I'll try to summarize it.
Yeah, summarize it, because I know it was a little bit of a lengthy span. Probably like you knew her for like 5 years or something
almost,
like that, right? Like give or take. But
almost 5 years.
So for the people listening, hopefully you're sitting down or doing something where you're not going to fall over. But I got to hear the story.
Yep. Sure. So yeah, if anybody wants the full version too, you can just go to YouTube and type "marrying Medusa," and you'll pull up the speech.
Marrying Medusa.
So it's marrying Medusa. Yeah, it's very clever, right? It's a 2-hour. It's almost 2-hour presentation. It's got like almost 400,000 views now or something, and you can watch it for free and all that stuff. So basically, I met this girl, Plenty of Fish. I thought online dating at the time was stupid. I was old school kind of pickup artist. I would go out to bars and the beach and like malls and stuff, and I just meet girls, wherever. And then I talk to them, get a phone number or whatever I'm going to do, right? So online dating then still had kind of a stigma to it. And I was like, it's for fags. Like I'm the man. I'm like, God, meet girls like old school. Well, one of her speakers gave a presentation on it, and it was pretty good. And I knew this guy was like pretty legit. And I was like, if he can do it, I can give it a shot. I'm just being stubborn or being closed-minded, right? So I did, and immediately I banged 2 girls off of it. I was like, wow, this is awesome. My roommates at the time were like, holy shit, like this guy's cleaning up. Because it was literally back to back. It was like one night and then the next night they were like, holy fuck. So they actually ended up being friends too, ironically. Coincidence or fate. Anyway, though, so I met this redhead though off there, and try to summarize it. She basically is a cluster B, and that she has a series of cluster B personality disorders, particularly borderline personality disorder. These are your crazy chicks from hell that you see, in the news and stuff, and something crazy happens to some guy. For example, there's that one teenager recently, this young girl who encouraged her boyfriend to kill himself. I don't know if you saw that.
When was this?
She told him. I think that happened about 1.5 years ago, but she's finally going to prison for it temporarily. Her boyfriend was in a truck, like with the windows closed, breathing in the fumes and stuff. And he was texting his girlfriend at the time, and then he's like, hey, I'm going to get out of the truck. And he gets out, and she goes, get back in.
Wow.
And he gets back in, and now she's going, I don't know what the charge is, but just shit like that, like really sketchy shit. Or when the girlfriend, chops the guy's dick off, or just does some really screwy, abnormal shit.
Like Dr. Kevorkian stuff, or Lorena Bobbitt.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not always violent. It's not always like that, next level. But it's not always like violent like that, but the intensity is always the same. So it might be something crazy, like encouraging some boyfriend to kill himself. Or in my case, it might be like rampant cheating and prostitution that was like very well hidden, and, a lot of dedication, kind of like me, for her craft and what she wanted to do.
Wow.
The core of borderline personality disorder too is fear of abandonment. So think about it in terms of a girl who has like really, really, really bad daddy issues and is really afraid of getting abandoned by any man she dates. Like it doesn't matter what the personality traits of the guy are, what his history is. It's all about her and her issues that are, however long they're dating back to and whatever that stuff. Anyway, me and this girl dated for, 2.5 years. We ended up getting what's called like a private marriage, something I kind of made up. My history in the pickup community and kind of the fallout of it, I'd seen that. The guys coming into it, the guys who were older, 40, 45, 50, getting divorce raped, really. They'd come into the pickup community and they'd share these horror stories of going through the court system and stuff like that, child custody battles, alimony, all this stuff. And they'd scream like, never get married, never get married. And the way I interpreted it, I was like, well, I didn't really grasp the entirety of it at the time, but even at like 21, 22 years old, I was like, well, there's definitely a point here. Like there's something really wrong with the way the law system is working with this, the courts. Like all these dudes coming in, these horror stories are legitimate. And like, why are they getting treated this way? And then I found the men's rights community at the time too, which kind of doubled down on that family law is broken, marriage laws are retarded, they're biased against men. So I was with this girl and I wanted to build a family with her. And I was like, well, how am I going to do that? Because I don't want to get legally married. That seems like a really bad idea. Like no benefits, all risk, just stupid in terms of a business contract, if you look at it like that. And I was like, well, what if we get all the mechanics and the functions
Now, are you
of
looking at
marriage,
just the state of Florida?
All over America, really, all over the West, I think it's like this. But yeah, so we were living in Florida at the time. We ended up getting married in Nevada and Las Vegas. Haha. That was actually like my idea, believe it or not. Yeah. Anyway, so basically what we ended up doing, a private marriage, I kind of made it up. It was like, look, we're not going to get a marriage license. So I'm never going to legally marry you, but we're going to have a wedding in Vegas. Our family's going to come out, which they did, both of them. We're going to have a honeymoon in Hawaii, which we did for like a week. We traded rings, obviously, and vows. And then she took my last name. She went to the courthouse a little bit after we got married and then changed her last name to mine. So most of the mechanics of marriage, minus actually getting married and then being on hook for that shit. And I looked up laws on like common law marriage and stuff like that, which were no longer in effect in Florida and Nevada. So I knew I was worried about that, and it looks like I was.
So you kind of just went through the motions of what a quote unquote marriage would look like, but then it's not necessarily legally recognized by the state.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Which the pickup community and the men's rights, that's how I interpreted it at that age. I was like, what's the primary problem with this? I was like, it seems to be that once you get the government involved, you're fucked. Or the minute there's a problem, you're screwed. And that's how, and even on a personal level, I was like, why? I'm the king of my castle. Like, I'm the man of this house we're living at. Why do I want to invite the government into my home and my relationship and the family I want to build? Unless there's a problem. Like, it just seemed like a really bad idea. Like, what is the purpose of this?
Right.
There's no purpose. It does nothing for me. And if they're gonna out alpha me in a second if there's a problem, so to speak. Anyway, we were married then in this private marriage thing for 2 years. And then one day I found out she'd been rampantly cheating. Then she confessed to cheating a whole lot more the entire relationship. Then she let it slip that she had been done some escorting back in like 2000, like early 2000s or something. And that was the key, because I was like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know any of this stuff, but that part in particular really stood out.
Did her family even know?
So, no, they had no idea. Nope. I mean, they probably knew she was like a rampant cheater from past relationships and stuff, but the prostitution, I don't think she held that really tight to the vest. Like, she was very, very not about that being public.
And you mentioned she wasn't like some kind of like corner girl. She was just like a higher end escort or something like that, right? Or
yeah, she called herself a high end call girl.
Call girl.
We actually, when we were talking about it, I was like, so you're a prostitute? And she was like, no, I'm a high end call girl. I'm like, so you're a prostitute? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, the hamster, right? The hamster's just endlessly spinning its wheels. So anyway, that little slip, though, is what I told a friend about that, who was a lot more experienced with women than me at the time. And he's like, yeah, given the rampant cheating and the fact that she ever did that, means she probably never stopped. He's like, you need to look into it, and what you're probably going to find is that she's been doing it for a long time. And within 24 hours, we had like a shared phone account. So I went through our phone records, like on our phone account, and I immediately found like escort services and shit like that. And that was like during the marriage and the relationship and stuff. I was like, holy shit.
Dude, what went through your head? I mean, almost like thinking like
it was
tested or something like that. I mean,
well, dude, this was like, I found this. Yeah, exactly. Immediately I did the next day. But I mean, this was like in a span of 10 days, I went from being in what I thought was a monogamous marriage to moving across the state, because I was like, I'm fucking out of here, like a bat out of hell. And then B, figuring out she's been a prostitute for like 15 years or something. I was like, holy shit. Like, I married a hooker. This happened like in a week and a half.
In Vegas.
Yeah, in Vegas, ironically, I know. So it sounds like a Hangover story, but not quite.
Are you sure they didn't base it off of your story?
They might as well have.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, though, I found that out immediately, and I was like, holy shit. And that really made me, I mean, first of all, I was really worried that I had a disease. So I went and got a full panel test, and I found out a couple days later that I was clean. I was like in tears, literally like in tears. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm not
Yeah,
a
I guess so. I
disease."
mean, that's
I
like
don't know
that's
how.
got to be
I
emotional.
don't know
I mean,
how
it's
either.
crazy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's nuts.
I mean, because you think the odds are
Um,
well against you.
yeah, I still don't really know what the answer to this because we had sex like every day for years. I had made a commitment to myself before I'd even met her. I was like, I don't ever want to be in a relationship where I'm not having sex every day because I was like, I just don't. That doesn't sound healthy, and I don't want to do that. So that was kind of the operating mode of the relationship. Like we're gonna bang pretty much every day, and we did for like 4.5 years.
Every day?
Um, almost every day, yeah, like 5 to 7
Yeah.
days a week, sometimes more. You're in your 20s like that.
Yeah,
Still going strong at 30. Still going strong. But this chick too would be considered like some people say they suggest I'm hypersexual. I'm actually very skeptical of that. I think being a young man, like you're super horny all the time, is pretty normal.
yeah. I mean, if you've got
Chicks are very
a good
sexual.
testosterone level and you're taking care of yourself and eating some good food
Exactly.
and
Yep.
moving your body and stuff like
Yep.
that, yeah, absolutely.
I completely
Yeah,
agree,
I
100%.
mean, that's
With
what
her
your
though, I
sex
think
drive
she was
should be.
more.
I mean, it should be high.
Yep.
Because your testosterone levels are peaking. So
Yep. Yep. Yeah, especially in your 20s like that. I mean, holy shit, you're like
yeah,
peak prime. With her though, I think that would be considered more like legitimate hypersexual, and that it caused like real serious problems in her life, like criminal prostitution, damaging relationships, all that kind of shit. So we were banging every day, and then on top of that, she would like cheat and then escort. So this chick was just, I called it back then, I called it like a tornado of dicks, like a whirlwind, like just.
I
So
don't think at
yeah,
that point you really need to give yourself any more visuals. you know?
yeah, I was trying to map it out, put an
Yeah,
analogy to it.
yeah.
Anyway, though, so a few months went by, and we were doing a convention then, the Under 21 convention in Orlando. That was in the spring, or was that June? That was June 2016. And I decided to give a presentation on that experience because people at the convention knew her. They were actually expecting her to be at the event. And they were like, "Hey, where's your wife at?" And I was like, "Oh my God, like these people don't know." So I gave a presentation on it, and jaws were dropping like for like 2 hours. Like, holy shit. Because yeah, a lot of the fans didn't know what had happened. I didn't talk about it much at that point. I'd been pretty tight-lipped
Sure.
about it. And then we filmed it, and then later that year I put that out, Marrying Medusa: How to Survive a Female Psychopath, and that's gone viral. It's done pretty well. It still gets viewed every day by hundreds of people, thousands
Wow.
sometimes. So, and that's
And
that.
that's that.
That's I've been single now. Yeah, I mean
How many years
that's.
ago was that? Or
She never
when did you
did.
guys break up? What year was that?
Almost exactly 3 years ago. The 3 year mark was a couple of weeks
Okay.
ago or something. February 2016.
Oh yeah, so just a couple,
Yeah.
couple weeks ago.
Yep. I've been doing pretty well since then. I've been finding the red pill community really upped my game level, so to speak, my ability to succeed with women. And that was a major turning point. Because before I found the red pill community and that whole community and that concept, I had been pretty successful with girls from the pickup community, but it was mostly just picking them up. And then obviously I had that relationship, which was fucking bizarre. But my real success was very limited. It was like very narrow. Like picking girls up, same night lay, fuck buddy status, and that's about it. And I didn't really understand women. I just understood how to pick them up at a bar or something, or like the beach
Right.
or whatever. So the red pill was the beginning in 2016 when I found the Rational Male, the Workarola Tomasi, and I found the red pill community that I had seen before because I liked their videos. They would send traffic to some of our speeches, the pickup stuff, because like, oh, this is a good speech. And they would say, oh, it's not red pill, but it's pretty good for these reasons. It's got good knowledge in it. So I'd seen that community, but I didn't understand what the hell they were doing. I just thought it was like a random kind of men's group. I was like, oh, it's some subreddit, cool. But anyway, that was the beginning in 2016 when I found that community, when I found the Rational Male of understanding women more comprehensively and more fundamentally. And that then has elevated my ability to interact with women. I just banged a girl last night, a fresh single mom off Instagram. It's
You
pretty
just
awesome.
what last night?
Just
Oh,
banged a fresh single
okay,
mom.
that's what I thought you said.
Yeah, I go through phases of banging like different categories of women. Single moms are some of my favorites. They're like really wild and sexual, I find, and then and very dangerous too. Like I have two friends right now getting wrecked by single moms, just like roped into these like toxic, abusive relationships. It's horrible.
So you're not looking for
Um,
relationship then. You're just more looking for like from the pickup artist perspective. It's just like you know
No, I'm definitely on the lookout. I mean, I definitely want to build a family in my 30s or 40s. I don't know when that's going to start though. It's slim pickings in terms of like decent women that don't have like a huge laundry list of daddy issues and problems and trauma. Most girls now that you meet in America and stuff, at least from my experience, I've met thousands and thousands. It's pretty bad. I think in fact I'm starting a convention in 2020 called the 22 Convention, Make Women Great Again, because I think that women need positive media and they need leadership and they don't have it. And in the meantime, through feminism and stuff, they are just wrecking themselves. And a lot of that damage is irreversible. So I don't know how much of it can be fixed, but I think Gen Z can be kind of saved or at least steered in a more positive direction and give them an opportunity to make better choices. Whereas millennials and Gen X girls have just totally gone off the rails, like just
What do you
total
think
shit
the
show,
biggest What do you think
in
the
my
biggest
opinion.
contributing factor to that is, or what's the best way to combat that?
So the contributing factor to
Yeah.
why that's happened. That's a good question. I would say it's actually a combination of a few things. So I would just say the toxic ideology and the hate movement of feminism. I think it's really inspired girls and women to have, hate men, very bluntly, but also have very distrust men, to distrust masculinity, like positive masculinity, not just the nice stuff, not just dad pushing his little daughter in a swing set, but an alpha father, a husband, a man who is a man for himself, who doesn't just do what his wife wants and his or whatever, right? His girlfriend wants and is some little bitch, but leads his own life and leads his family. So, but on top of that, it's other stuff too. I think birth control for now, in the 1960s or whatever, birth control came out for women. I think unilateral birth control for only their sex, there isn't like a real male equivalent yet. There's only just condoms and stuff and pulling out. I think that has kind of shifted the sexual marketplace in favor of women too strongly. And that's why you see them now just soaking up all this attention on the internet and all this stuff and just getting out of control. The way dating has changed, sexual marketplace, all that. But I'd say it's definitely multifactorial. It's, feminism, it's waves of this toxic crap that they're led to believe, all these they're like really bad ideas and like, memes and stuff they're into. Or these like little truisms, strong, independent women, shit like that. And then on top of that, you just have the use of technology, and you have more specific technology like birth control. I think was a huge factor of it. And now women, I think, have really fallen. Men have too, in a way, but we're doing something about it. Men are more keen to self improvement. Your podcast is an example of that. The men in the audience you have, and then the manosphere, which has millions of men in it, and that's been around since the 90s. Men have been taking it upon themselves to understand what's happening with feminism, understand what's happening with culture, and then how to improve it, how to improve themselves. Does that answer your question? You had
Yeah,
two of them
no, it
there.
does. It does.
Oh, how to change that for women was the
Yeah,
second
like
part
how
of
to
it.
combat that. I mean, how to.
It's tough. Yeah. So people think it's like a stunt sometimes that I want to destroy feminism and that I think I can do that for the next 30 years. But to me, it is possible and it can be done. Greater challenges have been met. The foundation, the building of this country, the creation of it was a good example of that. But with feminism, one of my methods is you have to drown them in media. So you have to win the kind of information war and the culture war. And you have to do that through everything that you can. Quantity of content, podcasts, videos, conferences, books, all that stuff, blogs. So quantity and then quality. Quality is something I'm huge on. I'm proud that 21 Studios is like the most advanced media organization in the manosphere and the best. The content we put out, the videos are like top notch every time. It's really nice stuff.
Yeah, I've seen the
All
production
the
quality.
filming,
It's really
photography,
good.
the audio. Thank you, thank you. And it's a priority for me to do that. Like I work hard on it. It's a major. We spend a huge amount of money
Hmm.
doing that. So, and then humor, entertainment, stories, passion, emotion, intensity, dedication. My speech about what happened with my wife is an example of that. My ex-wife. That was a very raw speech. No pun intended on that. But you'll see that when people watch it. Like it's even right off the bat, the opening of it's like just triggers the shit out of people. But it's all real. It's all real, and it's really savage stuff that you're not used to seeing in public. People keep this kind of stuff private. I'm like, nope, we're gonna
Yeah.
talk about it.
I just like
Um,
want to see like, where is that win-win? Where is the where we're both playing for the same goal? Same thing with same thing with racism. Same thing with religion. Same thing with everything. It's like we're all
yeah,
inhabiting this earth together. Men,
yeah,
women, different races, different religions. Doesn't matter. I mean, we're all here. We're supposed to care for Mother Earth. She cares for us. it's like, why does there have to be this tension? And yeah, I mean, so you mentioned
Yeah.
birth control, anything that starts to play around with hormonal levels, because in my coaching, not just working with men but also working with women, I've actually had to recommend that some of my clients go off of birth control, and the way
Yeah.
that their body changes, the hormonal changes that happen, are for the better, but sometimes it's a little bit of a roller coaster while their hormones are starting to normalize. So anytime
Yep.
you play around with the hormonal system, or the nervous system or anything like that, whether it's through food that we're eating, water that we're drinking, anything that we're consuming, and then of course pills, medications,
Hmm.
that can wreak havoc on the body, the mind, etc. So
Yep.
I really like what you said about that. But it's just, like with the feminism, and you know,
Yep.
I don't feel like we have to push women down and push men down, and try to. We should just be building each other up, all of us. You know what I mean? Because
Well, I agree with you, but feminism is the exact
yeah,
opposite of that. They think that for women to win, men have to lose. Almost explicitly at times, if not outright, they say something similar to that, some
yeah.
approximation of that. So feminism is for example, there is no female equivalent of the manosphere. There is no loose body of networks and blogs and stuff that are creating positive content for women, positive media, positive
Hmm,
education.
that's
None of
interesting.
that. The only thing you have is very negative stuff. You have the Oprah Winfrey bullshit, and not even, it's not even Oprah specifically. It's like that whole The View and all this crap with the magazines and
Is
stuff.
that is
It's
that
all
considered? I
toxic. It's
mean, I
all
don't really
toxic
watch that kind of
nonsense.
stuff, so I'm just ignorant to that right now, just because of
Yeah.
not knowing. But is a lot of that considered negative? Really?
Oh, totally. In my opinion, yeah,
Okay,
100%
because I've never
negative.
really
Yeah,
watched
it's
Oprah,
it
but I
does
mean, I know a
very.
lot of people. Of course, women love
Oh yeah.
Oprah, and apparently she's supposed to be
If I'm
empowering
not
and positive and things
mistaken,
like that. But that's the first time I've ever heard it kind of being like referred to
yeah.
negative.
Oh, it's to me, it's extremely negative. It's all fake front. It's all. I mean, it's as negative as you can get. It's encouraging women to act like men. It's encouraging them to distrust men and to hate men and all these like really weird
Hmm.
things. For example, Oprah, I think, just signed on to some sort of conference coming up where they're talking about women's empowerment and battling the patriarchy and shit. It's like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
Like, women get the pussy pass in this country and all over the West, not just America and Canada and everywhere else. It's a shit show. I mean, there's so many things women get passed for. It's just
Hmm.
insane. The idea that we still have a functioning patriarchy in America is delusional. That's been gone for decades upon decades upon decades. I'm actually starting to rebuild the patriarchy, so to speak, in Florida at the conference coming up in May in the spring. So the idea that we have this, I mean, they'll use Donald Trump, for example, the president, as he's the patriarch, but it's
Yeah.
bullshit. It was her turn, right? They weren't just angry. One of her speakers, Rolla, talks about this. In 2016, it wasn't just Hillary's turn. Her turn meant like a woman's turn. Hillary was just the figurehead for that, and she was, of course, happy to take advantage of that, to use that. They wanted a woman to be president just for the fuck of it, even though gender doesn't exist and it's a social construct. It's all delusional, contradictory nonsense,
Yeah.
and it's real toxic. And there is no positive voice for women right now. There's very little to hear outside of maybe their community and their family and stuff and their religion or something, maybe, and even that's going out the window. So what I want to do with 22 convention in 2020, it's going to be the mansplaining event of the century. It's going to be 100% male speakers from the 21 convention, the Manosphere. Hunter will be there. I'll be there. Roll Tomasi, a lot of our guys. And it's going to be a convention for women, how to make women great again.
No women speakers are going to be
That's
there.
zero.
Wow.
Yeah, we're going to invite a lot of female speakers to be like VIP
Hmm.
attendees. Christina Hoff Summers, maybe Janice Flamenco. I forget how to say her
Hmm.
last name. There's a couple of female speakers I like that criticize feminism that I'll invite to attend and see what it's about. But we're intending, I think, given the state that women find themselves in and the state of the gender war, we call it, in the culture right now in the
Hmm.
West, I think men need to stand up and speak to women about these issues exclusively. And maybe in the future, we'll create a conference for women with women speakers, but that's not what this conference is. This is a conference for women by men. It's the things that your father didn't tell you, or that your father should have taught you, or your grandfather perhaps, or that your mother failed to teach you. So we're going to try to help women become more beautiful, more healthy, more fit, and undo the feminist brainwashing they've been taught as normal for decades.
I like that. That's awesome, man.
Yep.
I never heard of, genuinely never heard of anything like that before. So it's probably safe to say that this is
Mm-hmm.
literally, and I don't usually like the word literally because some people just
Yep.
use it very loosely, but literally this is probably the first
Yep.
event like this ever, you know.
Definitely,
That's
100%.
amazing. I love it.
We're actually kind of worried that it's going to get protested and shit. So I'm really trying to figure out. We always hide. We do a lot of with security and privacy at the events. For example, the venue is hidden unless you buy a ticket for like $1,000 or whatever. But even that, we're still kind of worried that this event's going to get picketed and protested by feminists and shit.
Hey
So
man,
we'll
they
see.
say that there is
We'll
no
see.
bad
We'll figure it
publicity.
out.
You know,
Yeah.
free PR,
Yeah.
whether it's perceived. I mean, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, it's the intention, right? And if you and you
Yeah.
just said it right there, you're trying to help women be more beautiful, be healthier, more fit. And if this convention and the speakers and their message and things like that can do that, and it can,
Yep.
help to, empower them or fill the gap wherever it may be.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think the gap that they lack is they lack leadership, and that's why you don't see a female equivalent of the manosphere where there's like very genuine self-improvement for women going on. That doesn't exist.
yeah.
And this conference, one of the core intentions is to reach Gen Z girls eventually, right? As they go on YouTube and stuff, we put the videos out and then reach millions of them, hopefully. Yeah. But also it's to provide leadership. I think women at the end of the day, they have to take care of their own stuff. We can't fix them. Only they can fix themselves. But to do that, I think they need leadership and they need like a match. They need like a kickstart to do it. And that's the intention behind the 22 convention. I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I have no idea. I've never been a woman. I never will be a woman. Right. But I can observe and be honest about what I see. And so can our speakers, and we can speak raw truth to that. What women are going to do with that.
And I think it's worth mentioning that it's not just women and maybe younger women. I don't know if you're specifically targeting younger women because of, like you were saying, the Gen Z, is it? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just not convinced older women, like say a 33-year-old millennial woman, I'm not convinced that her capacity, I'm not convinced of the probability of her changing the course of her life and improving her life. It's possible, but it typically doesn't happen.
Right.
And I'm not that confident it will. I hope so. I hope they do. Like, I hope to God that they do, but I'm more concerned about girls who haven't done the damage yet at 18, 19, and 20 that are going to go into their 20s and probably slut it up on Tinder and shit if they don't take a different course of action.
And like I was saying though, I think it's really important to mention that this isn't just, obviously you've been doing this for men since, 2006,
my whole life.
7, so it's like, men need this too, so that's like the clear message. And hopefully because I do have female clients that listen to this podcast actually too, and thank you to everybody who listens to this podcast. But the thing is that, men need this too. You're talking about the leadership and you're talking about the role models and you're talking about this. Young guys need this too, because you're looking at, and this is, we could do a whole other podcast episode on this, of like, the examples that these young guys are getting, and then, what social media is doing. So you're mentioning like Tinder and YouTube and all this stuff, just what social media is doing to our younger generation. And, I have a 6-year-old son, and it's just like, I'm trying to teach him this kind of stuff and like what the dangers potentially could be and why, instead of just saying no, giving him a reason and helping him to actually connect a good reason that he can see. I was like, okay, well, this can affect me in this way. So he's not just saying no just to be an asshole dad. He's just saying, he's giving me context and giving me a reason. And I think that's really important with anything, whether it's with food or activity. Getting them to invest in the why and the reason behind it is so imperative. And
100,000% agree.
So I just, anybody that's listening to this, or anybody that does listen to this and that finds out about it in 2020, about this 22 convention, it's like, we're not just you, or just not picking on females, saying like, oh, you guys got to come to this convention because you have no leadership or anything like that. It's like, well, guys don't either. It's just the times, and just leadership is something that's needed. It's always been needed, but it's just lacking. And then same with everything. You know what I mean?
And so people criticize me. They're like, why don't you do a convention and call it "Make Men Great Again"? It's like, well, you're doing that. You've been doing that. For
it's just a title.
Years.
It's just marketing. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter what the hell the name of the event's called. It's the purpose and it's the intention of the event, of what you're trying to do. And you've been doing that. That's so like, would that make people happy? I mean, just have someone attend one of your events. You could basically call it that, or you don't have to call it anything, and you just show up and the message is there already.
Well, the name is a placeholder, and it has, you're right. It's not the name is not fundamental, but the name is still important because it encompasses like what we're trying to do. So the 22 convention, for example, that's not super important, but it is obviously a play off what
Yeah.
we already do. And then I also think about it kind of like DNA. I see X, Y, and then XX, 21, 22. I'm like, all right, close enough. Something interesting. But then also make women great again. I think that's a very good thrust that women need. Obviously, there's play-off political, movements right now in the country.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's not like it's not a political event, but I think it's a good thrust, and it's very challenging and very triggering. I get positive feedback from both Hillary voters and Trump voters with that. I wear the hat actually that says "Make Women Great Again." I get some negative feedback too, but mostly it's just positive and curiosity
Well,
because they don't know what to make of it.
a lot of people don't do, in my opinion, a lot of people don't do enough work on themselves and checking the ego and really,
Yeah.
really coming to terms with your ego in most cases is some of the most challenging work that you could probably do on yourself, but it's some of the most important work too, because if you can set your ego aside and look at what the event
Mm-hmm.
or whatever we're talking about could actually do for you, or the potential benefits, instead of just,
Mm-hmm.
judging it right away and then just having your ego jump right in and puff out your chest. It's like,
Yep.
just if you can let that go for a second and you can see really how
Yep.
could this could benefit you.
Well, women right now, I think in America and the West, they're very off-put. They've been trained to have a knee-jerk reaction to any kind of male criticism, including constructive
Yeah.
criticism. So, for example, one of our speakers about a week ago, AJ Cortez, he put out a tweet on how to be a beautiful woman. And it was kind of a 10 or 12 point checklist, just some basic things like be feminine, be graceful, be in good shape, listen to men, love men, like really ordinary stuff. And it went super viral and triggered like this army of feminists. It's so far done over 55 million impressions on Twitter.
What was the main argument?
It
Why
hit
you're a
made
man telling me how to be beautiful?
Yeah, they just went apeshit. Yeah, exactly. They just
Yeah.
went apeshit on him. I mean, they went. It's gotten 15,000 comments of people just screaming at him, death threats. He's gotten everything in his inbox from like death threats, threats of violence, to nudes, girls wanting to fuck them, hate fuck them. Like it's been pretty wild.
Jeez.
But it was his. You can check out his list. Just type "how to be a beautiful woman" and it'll pull right up. And it's amazing. Like, but what we're doing with 22 convention then is going to be massive. And he just took that much heat from putting out a tweet on some real basic tips for women, like listen to men, love men, be graceful, be feminine, be in good shape, like just basic stuff. They've been so deeply entrenched and brainwashed by this feminist crap that how dare a man have standards and voice that in public? Women do that all day long on their dating profiles. They have endless checklists of stuff, but a man puts out a really simple one, and oh God, oh no, the patriarchy is coming back to demonize. They're just destroy everything. It's delusional nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, he's saying like, listen, you have to look at what he's saying too. He's not saying like,
Yep.
wear a black thong, or
No, he didn't
walk
say
around
any of
with
that.
heels or
Yeah.
anything like that. It's just like, it doesn't
I think
really
the most
sound, at
controversial thing he
least,
said, he said wear pink and feminine colors. It's like, oh no, oh no. Like all these girls were pink pussy hats anyway, so
Yeah, well,
it's kind of
there are
ironic.
more feminine colors. I mean, you don't usually paint a little
Yeah.
girl's bedroom, a little baby girl's bedroom blue. You just you just
Yeah, or
you just typically
black.
don't. Yeah, we're black. It's like, and there's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that. You know what I mean? Is it
Yeah,
wrong
that's
that
right.
Barbie wears pink? I mean,
Yep. Well, the feminists are at war, I think, with basic biology. Like they hate the fact that men and women are different. This has been obvious and common sense for thousands of years, but they hate that fact because they hate
yeah,
reality. They hate the reality of what they've been so brainwashed that they just can't stand like basic science and biology and like basic even psychological differences between men and women. Like they don't want to
yeah.
hear it. They're just they've been so entrenched in this crap. It's
Wow.
horrible. It's got to end.
Yeah. Well, dude, you're doing an
But hey,
amazing job of trying to end it. So hats off
thanks,
to
man.
you, and yeah, I really appreciate you coming on the show. But as with every interview, we
Yeah.
just have to end with 10 questions. And these
Okay.
questions were inspired by James Lipton and Bernard Pivot. And I've already kind of given you the rundown. So you ready?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see what I can do.
Who is your hero?
It's a toss up between Steve Jobs and Ayn Rand.
Okay. What excites you?
My work. I am absolutely obsessed with my company and my work and what I do on a day-to-day basis and year-to-year basis. I love it.
What turns you off?
Feminism.
What is your favorite sound?
Uh, Man, I don't know. I don't usually think about stuff like sensory stuff like that. Maybe something with nature, either something in nature like being out in like a park or something, real quiet, or a woman moaning or something like that. Some combination of those two things.
I guess they're both nature.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
What is your least favorite sound?
Uh, hmm. Probably nails on a zipper or like that kind of, I don't know what to call it. Something with nails and like not a chalkboard, but something
Okay.
similar.
What is your favorite quote or saying?
I have a lot. One of my favorite ones recently I found is from Martin Luther, and that is peace if possible, truth at all costs. I found that a few months ago, and I really love that. And that's really fundamental to what I do with my company and how I operate.
That's nice. I like that too. Now, I know you don't have any children, but you work with a lot of men,
Hmm.
and with the work that you're doing, in a couple words, what should a dad be?
A dad should be a man above all, and he should be a man for himself. And through that, he should lead his family, his wife or the mother of his children, and then his children by extension. But he is a man above all and a man first, then a father, then a husband, but a man above all.
And in a couple words, what should a dad not be?
He should not be a woman. He should not act like a woman. And he should expect himself to act like a man and women to act like women. And that goes by extension to his children. He needs to teach his children to embrace their own nature as a male or female.
Nice. If you could try any other profession, what would it be?
I have no idea. I don't really plan. This is what I love, man. This is all I do. This is my only job, real job as an adult has been the CEO of this company. And it's hard to envision doing anything else. I love it that much.
Okay. And finally, what would you like to be remembered for, Anthony?
Never compromise. That's what goes on my tombstone. Never compromise.
Nice. Anthony, tell everybody where they can find out a little bit more about you and 21 Studios, etc.
Sure. There's a couple main websites they can check out. The first one is going to be youtube.com/21. So it's youtube.com/21. That'll pull up 21 Studios on YouTube. We're about to break 200,000 subscribers any week now. The second most important website they can check is the 21convention.org. That's the 21convention.org. That is our main event, our website for events. We have 3 events this year in 2019, the spring, summer, and fall. And then we have at least 1 or 2 planned for 2020. And finally, they can follow me on Twitter at Beach Muscles. That is beach, like going to the beach, muscles. And then Instagram is the same thing, Beach Muscles, 65 at the end of it, 65. And that's it.
I loved having you on. I really appreciate you taking the time. I truly do. And I hope maybe we could do it round 2 at some point later on down the road or something like that.
I love it. This has been awesome, man. This has been a great podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep. Cool.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
for
Have a
having me
good
on,
day. All right. Bye.
You too.